Hi, everyone. Lisa Dempsey here, your leadership coach. Let's talk about leadership today. Today, the topic that I want to bring to you is a little bit of going back to basics. I think I'd mentioned in one of my earlier videos that there's a few core, really key, basic things that I want to cover fairly early on because they'll be pieces that I refer back to regularly. So, what I want to bring today is the topic of toxic versus resonant leadership. And the reason that this is so important is I think it's, at least in the work that I do, it is emerging as an incredibly helpful and useful lens through which to look at leadership. So if we look at the basics, um, resonant leadership on one side, that's all about effective leadership. That's about things that work, things that are effective, things that are resonant. What are the things that within your leadership, again, whether you be an individual contributor and therefore you need to be a thought leader, or maybe you've taken on people responsibility, but how do you make sure that, you as a person inside of an organization are really having the impact you want to have? Your intention and your impact are resonant, right? You are getting where you want to go together with the other human beings that you intend to work with. That's resonant leadership. That's where that's where you also end up with cumulative effect. I think most of us join organizations because we don't want 1 plus 1 to only equal 2. We want 1 plus 1 to be maybe 3 or 4 or 5 because we see the potential and the power of bringing our skills and our gifts together to make more cumulatively than we can on an individual basis. That only comes from resonant leadership. That only comes from the place where you can show up and your intention and your impact resonate and work and flow well. Your relationships with the human beings around you are strong enough, robust enough, resilient enough that you can do more together than you can on your own. That's resonant leadership. Toxic leadership is where you end up with diminishing returns. You end up with this space where your intention and your impact do not resonate. They're quite dissonant and sometimes can even genuinely be toxic. It becomes toxic and difficult for the people around you to get things done. So rather than being a facilitator and something that helps create flow and collaboration, creating innovation and positive impact, there's a negative impact. There's the diminishing returns. And here's the really tricky thing about toxic leadership is I think a lot of us know it. I think the majority of people who have worked in organizations, whether they be big or small, they be NGOs or government or commercial operations, everyone has experienced kind of toxic leadership at some level in some way. That thing where you just go, oh boy, this is really hard to be with, and it takes me so much more energy to get things done. Everything feels hard. It feels like there's a hurdle. Sometimes even it feels unsafe. I don't feel safe to fully show up. I don't feel safe to ask the questions that I need to ask. I don't feel safe to be able to reach out to the other human beings I need to be cooperating with because there are barriers, there are genuine things that get in the way. And I maybe even feel smaller than my gifts and my talents. I feel like I have more potential in me than I'm able to express from this place in this environment with these people and under these conditions. I think the majority of us have experienced that in some way. I know at least I have, and universally, pretty much every single client that I've ever come into contact with as a leadership coach has at least one, if not multiple, stories about being in this place of toxicity. So the impact of it is very real. I think we all know it. We've all felt it in some way, shape, or form. And here's the really insidious thing is, I believe there are some genuinely toxic leaders out there, partially because there may be some individual issues at play, right? You have some very toxic personalities that exist out there. You know, people, whether you'd be talking about narcissistic personality disorder or really any of the what are called cluster B personality disorders, so borderline, some of the other things. I don't want to get into a whole bunch of psychological diagnostics because that can be very dangerous to just blankly label people with it. There are certainly a number of people out there who are in leadership positions who genuinely have some of these things going on. What I observe as well is within the space of leadership, oftentimes many of those toxic behaviors that we associate with some of those disorders are in fact the things that are championed within leadership. There's a lot of self-promotion, there's a lot of self-importance, there's a lot of externalization and being willing to take on big, brave, bold tasks and risks that are celebrated and put under the label and the header of leadership. There's also a lot that we've been socially acculturated to about, within our social systems, about what leadership is and what it should look like. And much of it is actually nothing to do with leadership. A lot of it is much more about power and force and getting things done at any cost, right? Results over relationship, getting things done, powering through, making sure that you reach your goal and persevere no matter what. There's all this stuff as well wrapped up in kind of the hero's journey that turns up about perseverance and determination and just getting things accomplished. That's all been put under kind of the hood of leadership. And I'm not saying that there are not moments where those things are needed. We all have had moments in our lives where a dash of perseverance and determination to just get us over that hill has provided value. And I think there's a narrative that lives really large inside of the space of leadership that leads us to a number of toxic behaviors that happen almost on kind of an unconscious level. We're not aware of their actual impact, right? And so this is the insidious thing about toxic leadership is oftentimes there are a number of toxic leadership practices that turn up because people are living this narrative. They're living a part of this, well, if I'm a leader, I should be doing things like this. This is how I need to be, and this is how I need to show up. And in fact, in our culture, again, a lot of this stuff is celebrated. Look at the number of people who are heralded as fantastic leaders, and yet we know that on a really human level, they do some really, really toxic things. So we don't recognize real leadership very quickly, and kind of this area of leadership has been polluted with some very toxic ideas and behaviors. So toxic leadership, oftentimes it is not the intention, but it is frequently a bit of the impact that we see. So it's really important to understand that there and be able to step back into that space to be able to observe, okay, how am I showing up? Am I showing up in a resonant way where my intention and my impact resonate and they're fairly close together and it's effective and I am in fact getting the things done with the people around me in a way that is workable, sustainable, and holds a lot of resonance? Or am I maybe in that space where there's some toxicity that's creeped in, intentionally or unintentionally? Is my intention versus my very real life impact? Is there some static on the line? Is there maybe some unintended impact that has creeped in, either knowingly or unknowingly? Being able to discern that, are some of your leadership practices toxic or are they resonant? Is a really important thing to be able to ask questions about, hold space to get curious about, and really check in with yourself in an honest way. And I'll be honest, it's easier said than done, right? I'm a leadership coach, and I struggle with this. I talk to people about this on a day in and day out basis, and it really is something that it can be hard to ask yourself these questions because sometimes answers come up that we really don't want. And a part of leadership is about getting comfortable with that, getting comfortable with being able to stand tall in the truth of it as opposed to sheltering back and looking to protect our ego to want to say like, well, no, but I really am a good person, so what I'm doing is right. My intention is good, therefore what it is that's happening must also be good. We have to let go of some of our ego and step out of some of those things and let go of some of these narratives, let go of some of these ideas that we have been trained in, taught, acculturated to about what leadership is being, and that it's supposed to be this place of power and knowing and doing. 'Cause, not only is that toxic for the people around you, it's toxic for the person inside of you. When we're holding on so hard to, I need to know, I have to know, I have to do. That's not a place where we as a human being can thrive either. So it becomes not only difficult for the people around us, but also for us as individuals. So that's what I want to share with you today. And I'm really curious to hear from you. What are maybe some of those toxic stories? Some of that, what are some of those narratives? What are some of those stories that that you've been sold about leadership that lead you much more to a place of toxicity rather than a place of resonance? What is that? I'd love to hear from you and what insights you might have and what insights and experiences, I should say, actually you have on this. I know one of mine is, oh, I should go back and fix that. I just made a mistake in what it was that I wanted to say. Oh, I should go back and fix that. So there's kind of this perfectionism as well. Like, oh, if I want to be a thought leader in something, I need to make sure it's right and spot on. So I'm going to practice a little bit of my own leadership and let that go, and know that you know what it is that I'm getting at, and be okay with that. That's it for now. I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas. Thanks so much. Bye for now.